Welcome to Season 4, Episode 3 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to share some thoughts on overcoming decision paralysis. I'll teach you how to make better decisions and make them more quickly. You can visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript, links to recommended resources, and to share your thoughts on the show. This episode is sponsored by Kiddom, a standards-based platform helping teachers personalize learning. With Kiddom, teachers gain access to an unlimited library of content with beautiful, actionable reports. And the best part? Kiddom is free. Visit kiddom.co to learn more. That's kiddom.co. Now, I think this week's episode is going to be even more and more useful as time goes on because I feel like we just have a paralyzing number of choices in our culture today, and it just seems to increase with every passing year. I feel like just picking a loaf of bread to buy at the grocery store can be this 5-minute process that leaves you feeling drained and just annoyed by all the different factors you have to weigh for something that seems like it would be so simple. In teaching, you might get hung up on decisions like, what planner or what grade book should I buy? Should I use interactive notebooks with my class? Would I be better off with this one whole class quiz app, or should I find a different quiz app? Which desk arrangement would be the best one for the types of activities that I'm doing with kids? There's all kinds of different decisions in education like this, and today's episode is designed to help you make better decisions and make them more quickly, and feel comfortable sticking with them after they've been made instead of constantly second-guessing yourself. So let's dive right in here to this first strategy, which is to set limits on how much time you're going to spend exploring your options. Now, I'll give you an example that happened to me recently. My team and I have just been swamped with emails from the 40-Hour Teacher Workweek Club members, and we really needed some sort of software or email tool that would allow us to have a proper help desk where members can get their questions answered and submit a help ticket if they need assistance. Choosing a platform for this is a decision that really I could have spent days or even weeks agonizing over. But I have a lot of other decisions to make, and I have a lot of work to do, and not a lot of time. So I gave myself 1 hour to make a decision. Here's how I did it. The first thing I did was Google it. I just searched for best help desk email, and I scanned a few articles. Now, it became apparent very quickly that there were at least a dozen options out there, but there were only 2 major players in the industry. So I immediately ruled out all the others. After all, I didn't want to explore every option that was available. I just wanted the best ones. And if most people were choosing one of these 2 platforms, then that was social proof enough for me to feel okay about not really looking into the others. Then I asked a web developer friend for his opinion. So rather than crowdsourcing in a big group or asking all my Facebook friends and then having to wait for days to see all the different opinions and sorting through all the conflicting advice, I just went to one person that I trusted. And he echoed what I had discovered on my own. There were 2 really good choices out there, and either one would probably work just fine for me. So I spent the last 30 minutes of the hour I had allotted to this task to exploring those 2 options in depth and comparing the features, comparing the pricing, reading the different reviews online. Now, this was the point where most people would felt like they'd gotten pretty close to making a decision and decide to just stop there for the day. Think on it, sleep on it, come back to it the next day. However, I knew that my decision hadn't truly been made until I took action on it. And I didn't want to have to block out time on the following day to go back through and process all that information all over again and start weighing things out in my mind once again. I knew I'd spent about an hour on the decision-making process at this point. So I went ahead and signed up for the tool that I thought was best. And I immediately moved into the phase of learning how to use it. That was kind of the test for me. I wanted to see, would I find it too difficult? Would I encounter a major problem? If I had, I would have reached out for support and then either pushed through or else switched to the other tool at that point. But I knew I had too many other decisions to spend days or weeks weighing all those options and going back and forth. I just needed to get in there, make a decision, and just try it out. Maybe I should have picked the other tool. Maybe I would have liked it better. But the choice that I made is just fine. and it works great for my needs. So I encourage you to follow a similar process as you try to make your decisions, particularly around tech tools or something else that you should get for your classroom or any sort of decision where there's tons of different options out there. Set a time limit for how long you're going to spend researching your choices. And then when time is up, go with your gut and make a decision. There's always going to be something new and probably something even better out there. And if you get what we call shiny object syndrome, where you're just always looking for the next shiny new thing that might be better than what you currently have, you're going to waste a ton of time and brain power. So make that decision as soon as possible and don't overthink it. This ties directly into the second strategy for overcoming decision paralysis. Never procrastinate in a way that causes you to make the same decision twice. Some people have a tendency to procrastinate because they're afraid that they're going to make the wrong decision. So they weigh their options, they come to a likely conclusion, but they don't ever make that final decision. They never pull the trigger. They'll say that they've decided, or they'll say they'll probably do X, Y, and Z, but they don't take action on the decision because they haven't really made up their minds. Now, unfortunately, I'm not always as decisive in life as I was in the example that I gave you about choosing the email platform. So here's sort of a non-example for you of what happens when you aren't decisive and you procrastinate. So I use a service that's called e-meals for my meal planning. I really love it because it's like $59 for the whole year, and they send me 7 new recipe ideas every single week in their app. So all I have to do to plan my meals is pick a few that I want to make. I can either pick from those new recipes that they sent or from my recipe library that's saved in the app. And then e-meals creates the shopping list for me. So the whole point of this is to keep me from wasting time meal planning, or worse, not meal planning at all, and then standing in the kitchen for 20 minutes every night trying to figure out what I'm going to make and hoping that I'm not missing a key ingredient. The other purpose of doing it this way is that e-meals makes my grocery shopping quicker and easier. So before e-meals, I would create my own shopping list, which is something that I just hated doing, and I always forgot an ingredient. I would forget something like fresh basil, something that seems really minor when you're making the list of ingredients, but it will ruin the meal if you don't have it during the actual cooking process. So now, with the system that I'm using currently, I can plan my meals for the week and have a shopping list ready in less than 5 minutes. So for me, it's been a really good system overall. I've been doing this for about a year now. I've been really happy with the way it works. But on this particular week, I had favorited a bunch of different meals, but never made the decision about which ones I was actually going to make that week. So I'd weighed my options, but I didn't take action. I just kind of figured it didn't really matter. I could just narrow things down when I got to the store, right? But see, here's the problem. When I got to the store, my phone rang. And then I was completely distracted by the conversation. And by the time I got off the phone, I was in the middle of the store, still didn't know what I was there to shop for, and was trying to figure things out on the fly. So I was midway through one of the aisles, and I had to go backtrack across the store to get an ingredient I was going to need after all. And then I ended up getting home and realizing I'd still forgotten something. And I ended up buying a bunch of different things that didn't fit into any of the meals that I had planned, and went bad before I had a chance to use them. Total waste of money. So it was a great idea in theory. What went wrong? Well, I'd convinced myself that I had made a decision. I knew basically what I was going to buy, right? All I had to do was make those last few selections between meals when I got to the store. But that means the decision wasn't really made. I was procrastinating instead of being decisive. And so I ended up having to spend my evening making the decision and then my afternoon the next day thinking through all those same questions all over again at the store. Now, this might sound like kind of a minor thing to you, but it created double work and double hassle for me, and it got me less than optimal results. And if you live your entire life this way, if you're never really making a decision, you're never really acting on things until you're completely out of time and you're forced to just think on your feet and do everything on the fly, that will wear you out, and it will impair your ability to create the life that you want to live. You have a finite amount of brain power, and if you're constantly expending it on finishing the decision-making process and going back and reworking things over and over again, you never get to fully take a task off your mental to-do list. You never really have closure on it. So when you sit down to make a decision, make it right then and there. Don't procrastinate in making the final decision so that you end up doing the same work twice. Now, the third strategy for overcoming decision paralysis is to make just fine your goal rather than just right. A lot of our decision paralysis comes from trying to find the perfect thing, the perfect chair for your desk, the perfect lesson to implement during an evaluation, the perfect outfit for presenting at a faculty meeting. This desire to find the perfect thing, it subconsciously puts more emphasis on the decision than is really warranted. You're pressuring yourself to find perfection for something that is relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. And that's what creates decision paralysis. There are hundreds of thousands of options out there. How are you ever going to find the one that is just right? And even when you think you found it, there will still be that little nagging thought in the back of your brain that wonders if maybe there was something better out there. So the goal in your decision making shouldn't be to pick the option that is just right. Instead, look for one that is just fine. So if you're in the store and the chair in front of you is comfortable, it's affordable, it ticks off the majority of the boxes, why leave empty-handed? Why spend the whole day trekking around to other stores and trying to do more comparison shopping online? Get the chair that's just fine and move on to the next task and decision. Similarly, if you found a lesson that would be just fine for your evaluation, don't spend hours looking for something better. Take some time to adapt what you already have, make it the best possible lesson, and then move on. You see, in most cases, the best choice is not the one you'd need to spend more hours hunting down. It's the one that you have right in front of you, ready to use now. So we've looked at 3 strategies so far. We've talked about setting limits on the amount of time you spend exploring your options. We've talked about not procrastinating in a way that causes you to make the same decision twice. And we've talked about how to make just fine your goal rather than just right. The 4th strategy to avoid decision paralysis is to think of 70% sure as an actual decision. Now, this is the good news. You don't need to wait until you're 100% positive on most things in order to move forward with a decision. The majority of decisions you have to make just aren't important enough to keep milling over and over again until you reach 100% certainty. And if we're really honest, the big decisions in life are so big that you're never going to feel 100% sure you're doing the right thing anyway. Now, when it comes to classroom decisions, 70% sure is going to be just fine. So for example, if you're not sure whether you should use Blooms or Remind as your parent communication app, do not wait until someone has 100% convinced you that Blooms is superior and you're sure it's going to be the absolute perfect tool for your particular needs. If you're waiting for that to happen, you are going to spend weeks trying to weigh the options. And what's going to happen is you'll end up just sticking to your current method, which is crumpled papers in the bottom of student backpacks. So go online, find a comparison of the 2 tools, ask the opinions of teachers you trust, and pick one. Get in there and use it. Try it out, experiment. If you really hate it, which I think you almost certainly won't once you get past the learning curve, you can always switch to something else the following year. So don't allow yourself to stay in decision paralysis until you reach 100% certainty. When you are mostly sure, trust your gut instinct, keep moving forward. Now, the final strategy is to avoid second-guessing yourself after the decision is made, unless you've received new information that warrants reconsideration, and you can actually do something about it. So you know that moment of panic that you have after you've made a decision and you've taken action? When you have that little voice in the back of your head that wonders, oh, what if we did the wrong thing? What if that wasn't the right thing to pick? You have to dismiss that voice. If you haven't received new information that warrants second-guessing yourself, then there's no reason to return to the decision-making process. The decision's already been made. Don't go backwards. Get yourself busy in implementation mode. Keep moving forward. Tell yourself, I made an informed decision based on the best info that I had at the time. It's all going to work out just fine. I don't have to go back. If you learn something new that would have affected your decision, you still don't want to revisit or question the decision-making process if you don't have the ability to change anything. So let's say that you were debating between two purchases and you made a decision, you started using one of the purchases or the purchase that you chose, and then you discover the following week that the other one's on sale now. If that happens, do not criticize yourself and do not allow yourself to second guess. Everyone's entitled to making a choice and then realizing later it wasn't the best option after all. Don't allow that to cause you to stay in decision paralysis on the next decision. Don't keep replaying it in your head. Oh, last time I messed up. Last time I picked the wrong thing. I don't want to do that again. Most of life is just not nearly as black and white as it seems when we're paralyzed by decisions. There's rarely decisions you're going to make that are all good or all bad. Okay, this is not a game of the Price is Right. You don't have a yacht behind door number 1 and a donkey behind door number 2, right? What's far more important than the actual decision is protecting your time and managing your energy. Keep moving forward and focus on the decision that you need to make next. There's never going to be any shortage of decisions to make, so you are going to get plenty of practice in fine-tuning your instincts and refining those decision-making skills. So in summary, you don't need to research everything exhaustively. Set limits on the amount of time you spend exploring your options. Never procrastinate in a way that causes you to make the same decision twice. Make just fine your goal rather than just right. Think of 70% sure as an actual decision. And don't second guess yourself after the decision is made unless you've received new information that warrants reconsideration and you can actually do something about it. I'm going to leave you with a motivational quote for the week ahead that I call the takeaway truth. And this week's takeaway truth is an anonymous quote that says, "Take risks. If you win, you'll be happy. If you lose, you'll be wiser." So when you think about it this way, you'll realize that every decision you make is either going to bring you happiness or wisdom. So make your decisions confidently. Thanks for listening and have a fantastic week. You can do this. And remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.